Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our weekly Torah class of inspiration and Torah learning. We always like to start off with giving because how we give, that's how Hashem will give to us. So please give generously so Hashem will give you generously. So I'm going to put some coins in the tzedakah box and please join me from your home. Tonight we're going to dedicate this class in merit of the complete refuah shalema for Dvorah Leah Bas Yafa Liba, a shlucha that could really use our tefillos, Miriam Bas Ina Pesio Chaved, Razel Bas Hadas, Razi Malamed, who we hope to hear good news from very soon. We're dedicating this class also in memory of our dear guest speakers, family members, Yitzchak Ben Mordechai Tzvi, Razel Bas Yaakov, Bela Bas Yitzchak. May their memory be a blessing, and may their neshamas just have the highest aliyah always, and may they always continue to have so much nachas from their entire family, and may we merit to see them with the coming of Mashiach now. I also dedicate this class weekly in honor of my dear grandmother, Rivka Dina Bas Yosef Yehuda. I hope you're proud. Tonight, I'm very excited to introduce to you a childhood friend of mine who I know since I'm a little girl. And I'm going to share with you a little bit of how she came onto this class. She's very proud of the accomplishments of this weekly Zoom class, which we also have a YouTube channel. Please subscribe. I'll post it in the inbox soon. And if you'd like to join our weekly classes, reach out as well. Henny is so gracious, and she told me that she's so proud of me, always so proud of me, but it's not really her thing, but she's really proud. One day she saw my status on WhatsApp, and I've been posting it, not knowing who's looking at it. And she messaged me and asked me, Chaya, can I join this class? I said, of course, Henny, it would be an honor, because it's such an honor when the people you love join the things that you do. So she came on once and she got hooked. And ever since then, she tunes into the class either live or listens to the recordings when she can. And tonight, she's going to share with us her journey to healing. And thank you for being here. If you can please unmute yourself, Henny Raksin-Reiser. We're so happy to have you.
Hi, Chaya. I'm so happy to be here too, and thank you so much. Chaya has been asking me to come on, and I just wasn't sure that I was ready to share. But then when I thought about the fact that if my share can help one person grieve and heal, or one person can learn something or be helped, and then I felt like I should just go out of my comfort zone and come on and share my story and do what I can to help others. So Chaya is right. We grew up together. We've been in elementary school and high school. So pretty much all 12 years of school, which is really amazing that we're still friends today. So I'm very grateful for that, Chaya. Just a little bit about myself. So my name is Henny Reiser. Some of you may know me as Henny Raksin. I grew up in Crown Heights. I was one of 7, and I was the only girl out of 6 brothers. We had a very close-knit family. A lot of my family, aunts and uncles, lived in Crown Heights. My grandparents lived not too far away, and they used to come over to our house for Shabbos all the time. In fact, they would sleep over, even though their house was walking distance, and I would give them my bedroom. So that's how close our family was. My mother's parents would sleep over at our house. I'd give them my bedroom, and we would just have so many nice family, get-togethers together, and it was just a really nice family unit that we had. Basically, when I was 17 years old, my mother and her parents, my grandparents, were in a fatal car accident, and they all passed away. It was a very difficult time for me and my siblings. We were all away for the summer. It was on July 8th, 2003, the summer right after I graduated high school. Was that summer. So my siblings and I were all over, scattered all over different places for camp. And family members were really helpful and tried to help us fly us back in time. And I was very grateful that I got to say goodbye to my mom. My grandparents passed away on July 8th, and due to my mom's injury, she died the next day on July 9th. So that was really special that I got to say goodbye to her. You can imagine how overwhelming it was for me and my siblings at the time, losing 3 loved ones all at the same time. But this July marks 20 years since their death, which in and of itself is, I can't believe it's been almost 20 years. Basically, it's been a very long journey for me, a very long journey in healing. It's still a journey, certain losses you don't overcome. But today I'm in a really good place, and I'm really happy to share my experience of grief and how I've gotten to this place of healing, to maybe help others who are also grieving. Basically, what I've learned in my experience of grief is you need to give yourself permission to grieve. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad. You went through something so traumatic. I mean, I lost my mother and my grandparents. How can I not cry? How can I tell myself, okay, you need to be happy, pack up your feelings and forget about it? You need to be sad. You need to cry. You need to be angry. You need to feel whatever it is that you need to feel at that time, because you need to grieve. I found that when I didn't give myself that opportunity to cry and grieve, I would overreact to something simple. Someone would say something to me, and then I would, snap at them, but they just asked a simple question. But I had all these emotions bottled up that I would just, displace them onto different things that were very inappropriate. And sometimes I would have like these panic feelings where all of a sudden my heart would just start pounding and racing, and I had no idea why. And then a song will come on in the car, and I'll start to cry. And then after that good cry, I would feel so much better. So I learned that it's really important to grieve, and everyone grieves in their own way. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. However it works for you, that's fine, but you should set aside some time to grieve. I also experienced that grief is like a roller coaster. There's no one emotion. It's basically, you feel all different kinds of emotions, sometimes all at the same time. And grief is really, really very painful. It really hurts. One minute, I found myself that I would be, doing something completely fine, and then a song will come on, or someone would say something, and the next thing I know, I have tears in my eyes, or I am crying, or my heart's pounding. And I've come to realize that with grief, this is normal. It's normal to have these roller coaster feelings. There's nothing wrong with you. You just have to figure out how to have the feeling, and then at some point, pack it up and say, okay, this is enough for today. We need to move forward with the day. And I will talk about that more during the healing phase. If I could explain what grief is like, my grief, I felt, was like a Band-Aid. Basically, you have a wound, you have a Band-Aid on it, and at any moment, the Band-Aid can fall off and the wound can open or be exposed. Basically, my point is, my grief, I felt like, is not something that would ever goes away. There are some deaths that you just don't overcome. How do you overcome a loss of a mother? There's some significant family members that there's no closure to. And so the Band-Aid part is the healing part, where you figure out how to, it's not covering it up and sweeping it under the rug. It's more about, how can I deal with this wound that can't stay open, because you can't bleed. You can't constantly every day think about this tragic event and be able to actually move forward. So you got to put the Band-Aid on it as a temporary recovery. And still today, even though I'm at a much better place, it's been 20 years, but it's not because it's been 20 years that I'm better. It could be 20 years and I could be exactly where I was before. It's been 20 years because I've been putting in work and effort to heal myself, to try to get me to a healthy place. I'm going to share that with you. Okay. I found that it's also very important to have a support system. In my experience, what I found to be very helpful is sometimes when someone's grieving, if you haven't experienced grief, or even if you have experienced grief, everybody's grief is different. Everyone's loss is different. You could have 2 people die the same way, and 2 people are going to react differently to it. So everyone's grief is really unique to their own. So I just want to share a few things that when I was experiencing my grief, things that I noticed that were helpful that maybe some people don't know. And if this could be helpful to you, that's great. Basically, in my experience, that I found to be a good support system to someone who's grieving it's important to go with the person's feeling. So when you come to pay your respects to someone who's just lost a significant loved one, sit there next to them, feel the feeling that they're feeling. No one's expecting you to empathize with them, but if they're feeling sad, sit there with them and be sad with them, or sit there quietly and just be a physical being for them so they feel supported. You don't need to try to make them feel better or try to comfort them or tell them that everything is going to be okay. This too will pass. Your job is not to make them feel better. The best thing that you can do is just to be with them so they don't feel alone. It's very difficult. It can be very isolating when you're sitting next to a good friend or a family member or someone who's trying to comfort you. And it's not the person's fault they don't know what to say. No one knows what to say when someone else is grieving. But if you could just be with the person in the moment that they're in, or just sit quietly and just be there. It's such a nice thing to do for someone, even if you can't understand what they're going through. Another thing that really used to get to me is that, there's this phrase that everyone loves to say, everything happens for a reason. Now, it's true, everything happens for a reason. But when people would say that to me, just imagine, I lost my mother and my grandparents, and people are telling me everything happens for a reason. That was not the right time and place for me to hear that. I was not ready to accept their deaths yet. I was grieving. It was a time for me to be sad. And I didn't find that very comforting or helpful. It's not that I was questioning my belief. We all have our own belief system. It's not that I was necessarily questioning, does everything happen for a reason? But, there's a time and place for everything. And when you're grieving, that time is to be sad, to be angry, to maybe even question, to doubt, to bargain. There's, 7 stages of grief. So it's not the right time to share with someone, well, God has a plan and you just don't understand it. I also realized that, paying a Shiva call, there's one thing when you're sitting Shiva and you're in a different world, but paying a Shiva call to somebody else can also be very difficult. And I've experienced both sides. I've sat Shiva and I've unfortunately had to pay many Shiva calls to friends and family, neighbors and loved ones. And I realized the importance of being there for the person that's grieving. It's not about your comfort of, oh, I don't know what to say to them. How am I going to go to this person's house and look at them after they went through such a tragic thing? Thankfully, I myself haven't experienced people not coming to pay me a Shiva call when I was grieving. My house and room was flooded with people that I knew and didn't know. It was beautiful. But I have experienced other people feeling that their friends or loved ones didn't know how to be there for them. And instead of coming and putting their discomfort aside, they just didn't show until they felt ready. So it's just so important to be there for someone who's grieving, show them that you care about them, and most importantly, that they're not alone. No one should feel alone while they're grieving. When I was sitting Shiva, I was only 17, and so I couldn't appreciate what Shiva was about, what Shiva was for. I was way too young and it was way too overwhelming. I remember that my house, we were sitting Shiva at my house. So you have to remember we were sitting Shiva for 3 different people. So all of their, even though we shared the same families, all of their friends, all of their neighbors, their coworkers, the house was just flooded with people. And as a 17-year-old, half of these people were strangers. It was the most overwhelming thing that I've experienced. And I couldn't really appreciate what Shiva was about. But Shiva is really important. After having paid Shiva calls to other people, you realize how important it is to be there for people. Another thing that I noticed that is not very helpful, that to me, and I'm guilty of this too, was we're all curious, how did the person die? What happened? One minute they were good, the next minute they're not here. How did this happen? How did they die? But I've found that when we ask people those questions, it can be very triggering to them. We're asking them to re-experience a traumatic thing that they went through. Also imagine there's 7 days of Shiva, and you're basically, how many people come in and out of the house during those 7 days? And if 5 out of the 20 people ask that question, how many times are we asking this poor person who's grieving to repeat the same story over and over and over again? So I just realized, I've learned that, let them share with you what they want to share. They will tell you what they want to tell you. it's best not to ask questions about what has happened. It's best just to be, again, it's about being there for the person who's shitting Shiva, for the person who's grieving. That's really what it's about. It's not about, what we want to know. So there's a time to grieve and there's a time to be happy. I found that life is about balance and choices. That's where the healing part comes in. When I was feeling sad, I would tell myself, okay, I found out during Shiva, the 7 days is just a time to be sad, cry your eyes out, be angry, do whatever, be depressed, lock yourself in your room, don't talk to people. It's your 7 days, do what you got to do. When those 7 days are over, usually it's back to reality, back to, making dinner, going to work, whatever it is that you got to do, it's back to reality. So I found I had to find a balance between grieving and doing the things that I needed to do to continue my life. My life couldn't just end at 17. I needed to work. I wanted to go to school. There was things I needed to do. So part of my healing process was give myself that time to cry, whether it was an hour or so, and then pack up those feelings and put it away for another time, another day, to find that balance. That was very helpful for me to find a balance between grief and moving forward. What has helped me get through those dark and difficult times, one of the key things was meaning. For me, finding meaning in my life, finding purpose, something fulfilling that made my life meaningful, was pretty much key to my survival. For me, I was 17, but my 2 younger brothers were only 7 and 8 years old, and they just lost their mother, their grandparents. My grandparents were like second parents to us. I mean, they practically lived in our home. Like I said, they used to sleep over every other Shabbos. They were a big part of our family. They didn't just come to visit. They lived with us, even though they had their own place. So my 7 and 8 year old brothers, they just lost their mom, their grandparents. They needed me. Being the only girl, also, I used to help raise them. I took care of them, babysat them, bathed them. So they were always like my little babies growing up. And then when our mom passed, all of a sudden I kind of felt like they were my children. I had to care for them and take care of them and be there for them. I didn't physically have to take care of them, but I just had this sense of, these are my babies and I must be there for them in any way that I can. And that really gave me strength. Having to care for them and be there for them gave my life so much meaning in such a dark period, that it really helped me keep my head set on straight. That if I'm not going to get through this difficult time for me, for my future, I'm going to do it for them. So finding meaning is a really big piece for me in healing from this grief that I was going through. Another big factor was hope. It's so important to have something to hope for, something to look forward to. For me, I kept telling myself, literally every day, I kept telling myself, there's got to be more to life than this sadness, this darkness, this whatever this is that I have right now. There's got to be more to life than this. There has to be a light at the end of the tunnel. I know this can't be it. And so for me, that was like a second big surviving skill, that I need to push myself forward. I need to do whatever it is that I can do to get to that light at the end of the tunnel. And that meant pushing myself to get out of bed every morning. Getting out of bed in the morning when you're sad is, I found, the hardest challenge ever. Once you're out of bed and you're sad, you can drag your feet, but to get out of bed, to get that physical energy to get out of bed was so difficult. But I kept telling myself, if I stay in this bed, what do I have? I lose my job. I don't graduate from college. I don't get to do the things that I set forth to do before that tragic car accident happened. So meaning and hope were something that really helped me push myself to get out of bed, go to work, go to college, graduate, get a degree, eventually get married and have a family of my own. That's what I wanted. I always, a lot of us when we're younger, we dream of our wedding day and being a mother, but I really, really wanted children of my own. And for me, that was my light, the hope that I was hoping for, that one day I'll become a mother. And in order to get there, I have to get through this difficult time right now and push myself to overcome this darkness, these sad times, so I can get there, so I can be there for my younger siblings, but also be a mom of my own one day. And that really helped me keep myself in a healthy mindset, because no matter how dark, life can become if you have a meaning and a purpose and hope for something better. It helped keep me grounded. It's also, I found it was important to keep my loved ones alive. So in the very beginning, now this is something I couldn't do in the very beginning. I could not watch home videos. I could not see them. I could not look at pictures. I didn't keep pictures around. I couldn't hear their voices. It was such an intense trauma. It happened so suddenly, there was really no time to process their death except through my journey of grief. And in the beginning, it was so difficult for me to just look at them. It was like a reminder of what I lost. It was a reminder that these amazing people are no longer here. And so I just had to like distance myself from them, which is not very healthy. But like, again, it's about balance, finding that healthy balance of grieving and being sad, and then moving forward with your day. But for me, it was difficult to look at them and see them. But after a lot of time has passed, and I mean a lot of time. I mean, it's like I said, it's going to be 20 years this summer, and this is the first time I'm sharing in great detail on a public forum. Some of my friends probably don't even know half of the stuff that I'm sharing because I just wasn't, I don't know, when you pack things up, it's hard to get them out. But so for me, being here today is also good for me to come out of my comfort zone and share and heal. This is a healing process for me, also sharing my story. So after a lot of time has passed, when I started to accept their death as this is my reality. My reality is without my mother, without my grandparents, that has just become the new normal. And as hard as it was, when you accept it, you're able to move forward, but you don't leave them behind. When you move forward, you see, notice how I say move forward and not move on. We don't move on, because how do you move on from a mom? A mother is part of your everyday life. If you think to yourself, how many times a day does someone say the word mom? Every conversation about your family, the mother always comes up. Anytime I talk to anybody about my family, I tried not to, because I knew it always goes back to, well, what would your mother think? What does your mother say? How does she feel about that? What's your and then my answer is, she passed. And then there goes the conversation. So to me, it was like I just took the word mom out of my vocabulary, didn't talk about family. It was just too painful. But then after time, when I've learned to accept the deaths and I felt empty without them, I wasn't carrying them with me. I sort of kept them in a quiet, dark corner and, was grieving over them. They were in my heart, but I didn't make them a part of my life. But when I was able to accept their deaths as my reality, I was able to slowly incorporate them in my day-to-day activities, where I would put pictures out, I would think about them, I would carry them with me. I would feel their presence, not physically, but if something bad was supposed to happen that day and it didn't, I would feel like they were watching over me. And that ended up being very comforting to me. So for me, keeping my loved ones alive when I was ready for it was very helpful in my healing process. Also, I found it very helpful to have support. You need to create a support network of family, neighbors, coworkers. Grieving is one of the hardest things I've had to ever do. And you don't need to do it alone. It's so important to have people to lean on and support. Asking for help can be so difficult for a lot of people. But when you're grieving, that is the time to ask for the help. That is a time when people are not expecting you to be strong. You are already strong when you reach out for that help. You are already strong when you continue to do the things that are your responsibilities to do. You don't have to be extra strong and grieve alone. It's unnecessary. And during that time, people want to be there for you. So if you don't want to ask for help for yourself, do it for them. They want to help. Friends, family, neighbors. If you live in a nice community, most people are nice, giving, and kind. They want to help you. So let them help you. There's no reason to grieve on your own. And for me, being surrounded by loved ones, family, I have a big family, thankfully, even though I lost a major chunk, a big part of my family, I still have a lot of aunts and uncles and relatives that live in the neighborhood and best friends that I grew up with on the block. And it was so nice to have a support system, to not feel like I was alone and to not have to do this by myself. And, it's interesting. I don't know what people's views are on about dreams, but everyone has their own experience, their own feelings. And I just want to share a dream with you that I had about my grandparents after their death. When they were leaving, you know how they say live every day like it's your last because you don't know who you're going to see next. And of course, we don't do that because we're busy and we're in the middle of something and we just say hi and bye and we don't stop to actually hug and walk them to the door. So my grandparents, like I said, would sleep at our house pretty much every other Shabbos. And I was getting ready to go to camp. It was a summertime right before the accident. And I was packing, it was much a Saturday night. I was packing up to go. I was leaving on the plane on Sunday, the next day to go to camp. And my grandparents were also packing up from sleeping over at our house. And they were walking out the door to go downstairs outside. And I was so busy packing. I ran to down to the hallway, and to the door to the outside, and I shouted down the hallway, bye, love you, see you, I'll see you when I get back, and they waved from up on the stairwell, and that was it. And I never saw them again. And I felt like I didn't have closure. I didn't get to say goodbye. It was such I couldn't let that go. And sometime that year, I don't know exactly when, but in my dream, it was Friday night. And again, this could be just my mind giving me what I needed, but it felt so real. It was Friday night in my dream, and I hear my grandparents calling me from the kitchen window. So I ran to the window, and I looked down, and I saw they were there. And so I ran down the stairs, the same stairwells that I waved to them goodbye. Instead of taking the 2 minutes to run down the few stairs to hug them, this time in my dream, I ran down the stairs, and I opened the door, and I hugged them goodbye, and they disappeared. And it was the weirdest thing, but it also felt so good that I had that closure. And I know that we don't all get to have that, but since that did happen, I wanted to share that. And for me, that was kind of healing. I was able to sort of not let go of them, but let go of the concept of not having been able to say goodbye, and then just figure out how to move forward and pick up the pieces of, now that I said goodbye, now what? They're still not here. But that was very comforting to me. I also realized that self-care was very important. And I'm not talking about, besides for physically caring for yourself, I'm talking more specifically for me was more mental self-care. For me, that was surrendering control over a situation that I obviously had no control over. In this case, their deaths. They're sudden deaths where there was no time to grieve, no time to process. 1 minute, you're talking to them on the phone. 2 days later, they're all gone. And to be able to let go of something that you can't control is very difficult. But it was so good for me. It was so healthy for me to care for myself mentally and emotionally that way, to just let go of things that I had no control over. Complaining about it, to some extent crying about it, trying to undo it, none of those things are going to work. Death is infinite. There is no coming back in this world. So fighting the system that you can't win just, was hurtful to me. So what I had to do was, just let nature take its course. They left, they're gone. There's nothing I can do about that part. But how I'm going to react, what I choose to do next, how I'm going to overcome these challenges and obstacles, that is what I have control over. And that didn't happen overnight. It took some time of the crying and the bargaining and the why me and all of the feelings that I had to feel to, I guess, be mentally exhausted and emotionally drained to get to that point where, like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And so I had to make a choice that I need to take better care of myself mentally and emotionally. And I need to do a better job for myself in overcoming these obstacles and challenges. And when I let go of things I don't have control over, because there's no other option but to just give in and let go of what I couldn't control. And what I also found that was very helpful is, for me, for those who know me, I feel like for the most part, I'm a happy person. And after the accident, trying to be happy was so difficult. I mean, there were so many things to still be happy for. I mean, I had my siblings, I had family members, but I didn't have some of the people that were so close to me. And to not have it was just, I don't have to really explain how difficult that was. You can just imagine how difficult it is to lose one person, let alone three at the exact same time. But for me, happiness is so important. Till today, I strive every day to be happy. And I want to be happy. I need to be happy. I want to feel good. I want things to get better. And I realized that in order for that to happen, yes, I need to grieve. So I'm talking about after I've gone through the grieving process, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, for each person, it's different. But then I found that I just want to get back to a part of my, I don't think you ever really get back to your old self, because when your life changes so significantly like that, there is no old self. It's just new Henny, you know? And for me, I just wanted to get back a piece of old Henny, which was that happy part that was pretty much happy. So for me, that was a challenge, but it was also a goal. I basically, I realized I need to take charge of my own life. I need to create my own destiny. It's not always easy being happy, but it's a choice to say that I want to be happy and I want to feel happy. And then, put your words into actions. Then do things that actually create that feeling. It's great to say, I want to be happy, but I'm not happy, or I don't know how to be happy. For me, it was, I want to be happy and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Find a healthy coping skill. For me, music, physical activity, such as exercise and sports, socializing, journal writing, those were all things that were healthy habits that I found to help me get to my happy place. So whether it's having a bad thought or a bad day or feeling something, writing in my journal or putting on my music, and a lot of times that would help just sort of put that feeling aside for now and move forward. And sometimes that didn't help. The song is over and I'm like, I'm still in this mood. Now what? I would have to tell myself, well, I don't want to be in this mood anymore. And if this song doesn't work, and if that song didn't work, and if this jog didn't work, well, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to tell ourselves, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And then you just help your mind alter to some extent. You basically have to want it so badly that you manifest it. So you know how they say, fake it till you make it. You just tell yourself you're happy, you count your blessings, you think of all the good things that you do have in your life. No matter how bad something is, it's up to you to decide if you want to find the good within that bad. And for me, having lost so many loved ones at the same time and still experience tragedies after that accident, and I want to tell myself that I still want to be happy, I still want to find, get to that point. It's a challenge, but it's my choice, it's my will. And you have to want the happiness. You have to chase it, and you have to want it in order to keep it. And for me, that was really a big part of my healing process, that I want to be happy. I'm not happy every second of every day. Doesn't make any sense. But for the most part, I feel happy with where I am in my life right now. I do have a lot of things to be grateful for also. I did get very, very blessed to have my happy ending. First of all, I've achieved my dream of being a clinical social worker. When I was in high school, I always wanted to be a social worker, and I got my clinical license to practice therapy, to help other people. I'm married with 4 children. And I happen to be blessed with twins. Never in my life would I've ever, you could ask my friends that are on this Zoom. We never talked about, oh, Henny wants twins, or Henny's going to have twins, or there's twins in the family. But somehow, I guess through, my mom and my grandparents, I was blessed to have twin girls. And of course, I named them after my mom and my grandmother, Rosalie and Bella. My grandmother was Rose. We called her Bubby Rosie. And I put a little spin on that name, and I named my daughter Rosalie, but her Hebrew name is Razel, the same as my grandmother's. And my mother's name was Bella. And I have my own little Bella. And I'm actually very grateful to say that from us siblings, everybody who's married with a kid has a Bella. And that took about 11 years, if I'm counting correctly. We had grandson after nephew. And then finally, in 1 year, 3 girls were born. 2 of them were mine. The next year, another girl was born. And then after that, thankfully, all the married siblings have a girl. So we have lots of Bellas in the family, and the extended families have lots of Bellas and Rosies. And at this stage in my life, it's very comforting to have all of these family members with these namesakes, these beautiful Rosies and Bellas walking around. It's like they never left. So for me, I'm blessed to have a happy ending. I'm really very grateful for that. And I feel like wherever I go, they go, because my twins follow me. And I also feel like, you know, they died together. My mother and grandmother and grandfather, they died together. And my mother and then grandmother, my twins, they were born together and they share the same name. So to me, just having my twins is, every time I hug my twins, it's comforting to me that my mother and grandmother are here with me again in my own version of me being a mom. And there are lots of Yitzchaks. My grandfather's name was Yitzchak. We called him Zaidi Yitzi. People called him Isaac. There's lots of Yitzchaks running around also, nephews, first cousins. A couple of my first cousins also have twins, and all the twins have variations of different names of loved ones. It's such a beautiful, happy ending for our family. So I feel very blessed with that. I just wanted to share before I end a few things about my grandparents and my mom. So Chaya always says she likes takeaways. She likes when people, you know, take something away from the person's share. So if there's something I can give to you about my grandparents and my mother, my grandfather, when I think of him, I think of the word respect. He was such a respectful person. Anyone who knew him, he would just walk around, always neat, put together, nothing out of line. So respectful when he would talk to people. He was so respectful the way he talked to people, and people respected him in return. I loved walking with him on the street. First of all, he was so young looking. People always thought he was my father. He used to always laugh about that. But he was so proper with the way he dressed and his mannerisms. And he taught me to always be respectful when you're acting, when you're speaking. Respect, there's no bending respect. Respect is respect. Just be respectful. People will be respectful back. So I'm very grateful for him for having taught me that and instilled those values in me. When I think of my grandmother, I think of midos tovos, good manners, someone who was always polite, very helpful. She was polite in the way she acted, in the way she walked and spoke, the way she ate. I remember she would always tell us, chew with your mouth closed and get your feet off the table. That's not how we sit at a table. That's not polite behavior. And I feel so blessed to have had them in our lives. They were such a big part of our family. They taught us so much. And I try to carry that on with me, teach my children. You know, Bobby says no feet on the table, so you can't put your feet on the table. It's not polite. And it's important. You want to help carry your loved ones with you. You know, continue living your life in their footsteps. Carry their midos tovos, their good behavior with you. The things that you do it for them. Do it in their way. It will help you feel closer to them and feel like they're still there with you and guiding you. And then, of course, my mom. My mother was the best mother. There's so much I could say about her, but one thing that really stood out to me when I was a child was the way she was a mom to me and my 6 brothers. She would always put her children first. I remember growing up, she was a hairdresser, and she also used to style wigs. And she had in one of the rooms downstairs of the house, she had her own little shaitel room. That's what they call the wigs, the shaitel room. And I remember we would sit on the stairs. It was, let's say she had a client at 8 o'clock at night, someone had to do their wig for a wedding, and we're sitting on the stairs at 8 o'clock at night, and we're waiting for her, you know, to do bedtime. And I know as a mom myself, we all, like my kids right now, they're waiting for me to do bedtime. We've all been there. But I used to eat at her that almost every night, every Sunday, we're, you know, hanging around the house, waiting to hang out with her for her to, you know, do the next part of the routine. And even though she loved being a hairdresser, she was also an artist. So she loved drawing and designing hair and decorating things. She gave that up, and she did her second best passion, which was a preschool teacher, because she loved children and she loved educating people. And it was so inspiring for me to see how she dedicated her entire life was about her children. She put us first all the time. And I'm just so blessed that I experience such a great mother, that I'm able to try to, you know, carry what she has done to us and do that for my children. Try to strive to be a great mother, just like she was. And one of my fondest memories of my mother is, being that I'm the only girl. So we would light the Shabbat candles together on Friday night. And one Friday night, she learned the song about the blessing. I don't know where she got it from, but she came home and she says, we're going to try something new. Instead of saying the bracha, we're going to sing it. None of us are singers, but we have each other, and we're just going to sing the song. And she taught me the song, and every Friday night we'd sing the song together. And I got to give my brothers and my family credit, where they would stand there quietly while we would sing the song. It was noisy up until the minute that we were bringing in the light from the Shabbos candles. It was noisy the second after we said good Shabbos and gave each other kisses on the cheeks. But in those few seconds, it was quiet, and it was just me and my mom singing the song. And I'm so blessed to have my daughters, my twin girls. When we light the candles Friday night, we do the same thing. We bring in the Shabbat light and we sing the song. And I can't promise that it's as quiet as it was when I was a kid. And I'm still working on that as a mom, to keep the house quiet during that time. But it's so beautiful that I'm able to share that with them, and they'll share that with their children. And so it's just something that keeps me close to my mom. Every Friday night, I feel connected to her. And so, I'm passionate. My passion in life is helping others. That's why I'm a clinical social worker in the field of psychology. I love people. I love helping people, making a difference in their lives, in the world. And this class, My Journey to Healing, is a guide to finding happiness after tragedy. And I shared my story tonight to give strength to those who need it. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Thank you, Henny. That was beautiful said and heartfelt. And I'm sure tonight you're going to help so many people who are grieving or had loss or is going through loss or is going through hardships. So that was really special. A very wise rabbi in Crown Heights, I once went to him after my grandmother passed away, and I wanted to know all about her. And he looked at me and he said, you don't have to know about her, because I see her in your eyes and she's going to live through you. Everything that you do, she's going to live through you. And Henny mentioned so many beautiful points about her grandmother and grandfather and mom. And I'm sure they're so, so proud of you, because I can attest Henny is the best mother and the kindest soul. And she's so helpful and she's happy. Okay. She's happy. I was thinking the other day, when's the last time I saw Henny sad? I didn't. And we have a very beautiful, beautiful friendship that's strong. We don't have to speak every day, but we know we're always there. It's like stars. Sometimes we don't always see them, but they're always there. And that's our friendship. And it's really special. So Henny, through you, your mom and your grandparents are living through your beautiful examples of showing and teaching your children, the future generations. And very soon, when Mashiach comes, when they come back, you're going to have so much to share with them, because you're going to show them everything that you did, and they're going to be so happy. You didn't just stay in bed with your pillow in your head. You got lemons, but you made lemonade, and you have so many beautiful accomplishments. And from this day forward, your family should be blessed tenfold, just with simchas and joy. And I'm going to extend that to your extended family and your cousins. And, we don't always understand why something happens. We don't get to choose what happens to us. We only get to choose our reaction. And Henny, you ace this reaction. And you should, from this day forward, you should feel your mom with you. And you should be able to say, Mom, 100 times a day, because she hears you. I'm just going to share with you that we had 110 ladies tonight on our class that participated, and many people are waiting for the recording, but it's a year of Hakel. So in Hakel is when the Jewish people gathered in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, men, women, and children, and they all brought sacrifices. Today we can't do that. So what do we do instead? We do mitzvos. We pray, and we obviously are there for each other. So tonight I'm going to request on Henny's behalf, because we spoke about this before. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was very into that children from the age of 3, girls from the age of 3 should start lighting candles with their mothers. If you're a mom, please consider to do this for Henny. What does, even if it's not your custom, it's bringing an extra light into this world. And trust me, we need it. And every single week, when you bring an extra light, you're doing it for Henny and her mother, because her mother can't do it with her anymore, but you can do it with your children, and you can pass on that message to your children. Candle lighting is also a time to have a direct connection with God. You're literally calling him on the telephone and you can tell him everything. It's your time. It's a woman's mitzvah, and it's a time that you can really just take off everything off your heart, and no one could hear it, just you and God. And he will deliver, and he does. So my request tonight is, if you don't light Shabbat candles, start, okay? Because it's not just going to bring light into the world, it's going to bring light into your own families and your own house and your own life. It's going to bring connection for you and God. It's like, when people go to meet the president, it's really hard to get an appointment to meet the president of the United States, but God, it's very hard to meet God. But for us, we're so lucky. Hashem gave us amazing tools to connect with him in an easy manner. And we should tap into it by lighting Shabbat candles and bringing an extra light. And then very soon when Mashiach comes, we're going to rejoice. The Lubavitcher Rebbe said that Mashiach is coming in our generation. So Henny, your mom and your grandparents are going to be back. And they are here in a different way. So I'm going to share with you an analogy before I introduce to you our next speaker, who's going to share a personal Rebbe story and some beautiful encounters. But when we see water and we by a beach, it's beautiful, right? Gorgeous water. We think it's water, waves, stunning, swimming in them. But then when you go snorkeling and you or scuba diving, you go underwater, and there's a whole nother world under there. It's the most beautiful world. I don't know if anybody here has done it, but if you didn't, do it or Google it. But the most beautiful fish, the most beautiful life. There's life under the water. Same with the sky. We see a beautiful sky. Every night there's different colors, but behind the clouds, there is life. And the life moves on. What's amazing is we believe that our souls have, when someone dies, they don't die. It's not finished. Only their body is gone, but their soul lives on for forever. And how do we keep how do we keep their neshamas alive? How do we connect to them, and how do we feel them? Is by doing their wills and doing mitzvos for them, because they can't do mitzvos anymore down here, but we can do mitzvos for them. So tonight, my dear friends, let's all take on a mitzvah for Henny's parents and Henny's mom and her grandparents, so we can help bring Mashiach. So when they do come, they're going to say, we had so much light up there. It's like it's a revolving door. Okay, how we give, that's how God's going to give to us. What we give our loved ones, they're going to give back to us, and they're going to feel us, and they're going to be there for us. And that's how we can connect. And the best way is through Torah. They can't do mitzvos anymore. They can't learn Torah, but when we do, it's beyond for them, and it's written in the holy books of the Torah. So everything I'm saying, I'm quoting the Torah. Every Torah is a navigation for life. So if you ever need direction, the best thing is to go to open up the holy books, or if you need help, call a friend who has access, or call a rabbi, because I promise you, your life will change for the better, because you don't have to go to gurus for answers. We have it at our fingertips, and God gave it to us. It's literally our blueprint, and it's our navigation to life. And we will get to our end route easier if we follow the right path of Torah. So with that, Henny, I just want to send hugs through the screen and continue being the most amazing person that you are. Tonight, you showed the world who you are, but I know who Henny is, and Henny, you should continue. I'm going to say continue to give your mom and your grandparents so much nachas, and there will be continued light, and we're going to dance with Mashiach very, very soon. So I can't wait for that. I asked Henny before the class, I always like to bring in a Rebbe story. And I asked her if her family has a Rebbe story, and she said it does. She requested that I should ask her dear aunt, Lisa Scheinfeld, to share this beautiful story with us. We're going to share on the screen with you in one moment a picture of the Lubavitcher Rebbe and and her grandparents. And Aliza will unmute herself and share the story and some insights, and then we are going to conclude with a beautiful, beautiful video. So I recommend to stay on for that. So I'm going to ask Aliza to please unmute yourself. Wait, we just don't hear you yet, Aliza.
Maybe it's the volume on the computer. It looks like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
So Aliza, sign off and come right back on, okay?
Maybe the speakers
Please.
are, okay.
So I'm going to ask, in the meantime, that we're going to pull up a picture. Zoom changed something on their settings, so it's not in my control. This is a picture. We're going to zoom in of Henny's grandparents.
Do you hear me?
We hear you. And the
Okay.
Lubavitcher Rebbe marrying them. And now, just look at it for one moment. Aliza is going to share a little bit of the story behind this beautiful, amazing picture that is a sketch of a real picture. So, Aliza, thank you for being here tonight.
You're welcome.
Again, we're lucky to have you back with us.
I'll just give a little shout out to Henny. You really did very well, and I'm sure that your words were an inspiration to a lot of people. The picture that you just saw was the Lubavitcher Rebbe being the one who officiated the wedding of my dear in-laws. And that was in, sorry, someone's trying to get a hold of me. That was 1958. And they were from the last of the couples that the Lubavitcher Rebbe was their officiator. After a while, there were many weddings. He had many responsibilities and he wasn't able to do it anymore. So that was a very, very big honor. When my in-laws got engaged, they were both very, very young. My mother-in-law never knew her mother. She passed away when she was a baby during war years. Her father was taken away to the army. They didn't know what became of him till many, many, many years later. My father-in-law was here in America from Brazil. His father had passed away. His mother was still in Brazil. So they were both two young people taking care of themselves. Someone they actually met at another family member's house. That's a story for another day. But in those days, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was right next door. You could go up and speak to him. It was very easy. And at that time, the Rebbe instructed him to do two things. Number one, that he should go to yeshiva in Montreal for a year, and also that he should grow his beard. And as Henny said before, that my father-in-law was the epitome of respect. He just followed the Rebbe's directive and did as he was told. And he went to Montreal and he grew his beard. And he also followed the directives of his teachers and his rabbis that were in the yeshiva at the time. He had the highest respect for those around him. Any question that he had in life, it was always a consultation. Let's speak to this rabbi, let's speak to that rabbi. And he had a lot of, I don't know how to explain Kabbalah all in English very well, but he accepted what he was told, knowing that this was the right thing to do, that this is what the Rebbe wanted from him, this is what Hashem wanted from him, and that he was getting the right directives, and he followed. And just want to say a little bit about Bella, about Henny's mom, that she was what you would call someone who really worked on themselves. She had a busy life. She had her wig business, and then she had her teaching career, which gave her such great satisfaction. And raising her children, her beautiful family, each one of them is a gem in their own way. And one thing, as Bella approached the later years, her older years, like in the couple of years leading up to the time that she passed, she was constantly learning and growing and improving herself, taking on a new mitzvah, a new decision, something else to improve her life in her and grow in her spirituality and in her learning. And the last conversation that I had with her, we were just talking about all kinds of random things. We were talking about learning, and we were talking about what she just learned, and we were just sharing different things. And she said, I really feel like I'm in a good place in my spirituality, in my growth. I'm really happy. And she just was a shining example of working on yourself and passing that on to the children, because the children also, the lessons, you think your kids don't know what you're doing, and you think that they're not looking at you. They're looking all the time. And you can see in her children the lessons that they picked from her to use in their own lives. And a quick thing about my mother-in-law, who was the epitome of love and Ahavas Yisrael, loving another Jew, loving another human being. All she did was care about other people and family first. For all three of them, family first, family first. Getting together, just sitting around and laughing till we cried. The same stories over and over again, like we heard them for the first time. And having that strong family unit is what helped the entire family heal. And we all live in different places now. Henny and her siblings are a little bit scattered, but we try to maintain that connection and live with the examples that they gave us, and knowing that they were so attached to the Rebbe and the Rebbe's lessons, and we try to do the same. So I hope that we shared a little bit about them. And of course, Henny is, in her experiences as a social worker in her career and her training, she helped us very much. I spoke a few months back that our family suffered a loss, and Henny's advice was invaluable, and it constantly remember the things that she taught me. And we should only know of happy occasions and dance with Mashiach, with everybody, with all our loved ones from all over the place. And Chaya, thank you again for this forum. It's really, really special.
Well, thank you, Eliza, for sharing. And Hashem should continue to bless you with only amazing things. And this was just a small snippet of who Henny's grandparents and your in-laws were, and mom was. And if you have any memories with her, please reach out to me so I can share it with Henny. I see Henny unmuted herself.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that, because my wonderful Aunt Eliza is complimenting me. I just want to say that when I saw that my Aunt Eliza came on to Chaya's class, I said, okay, because Chaya was asking me for months and months, and I don't know, I just wasn't ready. But when my Aunt Eliza spoke, and I saw my other Aunt Sassy who's on here, she spoke, and I'm like, you know what? What's my problem? They're all getting on and speaking, and Eliza shared her story, and I'm like, okay, that's it. We're doing it. We're just doing it. So thank you for inspiring me to come on.
Henny, you're a rock star. We're going to now conclude with a beautiful video. So please. Give us one moment. It's coming on.
Die Neshama ist ein Nitzchis, und da wissen sie nie der Pirush in der Rufis. Als ist ein Neshama Nitzchis in Gan Eden. Benele, was hat es für ein Scheiches mit dem, nur das hat ein Scheiches mit dem und not ein Scheiches. Bis in meistische Lei, in anhogische Lei, in der Peile, Nele, Mazah, Tachten, Neshama begut.
My father was nifter when I was still in college. That was in 1953, and 5 years later, my mother was nifter on Yud Aleph Nissen. So I wrote to the Rebbe a long, long, tearful letter, pouring out my sorrow at the loss of two parents and just being in my 20s.
Our oldest daughter became very sick. The Rebbe strongly urged me to go to California to see a physician there who was known all over the world. And at first it was successful, but 5 years later, we lost our daughter. At that point, I didn't know where to turn to in this world. I wasn't sure that with all the depth and strength of my emunah, of my faith, that I could survive this. I was not sure. And I had tightness to the Rabbanu Shalom.
When my sister, Rechalei Shustman Allah Shalom, passed away, so it was a short while after Shiva, that my mother wrote a letter to the Rebbe, how could the Rebbe do something like this, and what should she do, and how should she, how is she supposed to live through life? This was already after I've lost my older sister, Alta Schwartz.
So I wrote the letter and I made an appointment to go see the Rebbe. I walked into the room. I just stood there and I cried and cried and cried and cried and couldn't get a word out. The Rebbe just sat there looking at me very kindly. He looked very compassionate and he looked sad, reflecting my sadness. And then he said to me, ich weiß nicht, was ich kann noch mehr sagen. Ich habe alles geschrieben in mein Brief. And I said, I never received a letter. And then we had a very beautiful Chassidus, which was based on what the letter was all about, but it was more wonderful because I received it in person. And then a few weeks later, I did receive the actual letter. All religious people, even non-Jews, believe that the creator of the world is infinite and incomprehensible. Not only did God create the world so many thousands of years ago, but it is our firm belief that God is also the continuous master of the world, who is constantly watching over it and taking care of everything and every individual. Obviously, it is impossible for a human being to understand the ways of God.
Well, the Rebbe told me it was all right to have tightness. He says, alles kann man nicht empfehlen. Die Sache was it is be yitachetz. But if we might mean him that there is a Rabbanu Shalom, that the Rabbanu Shalom knows, Zeus nechmasi b'yoni. Yeah, the Rebbe said, I remember, the Rabbanu Shalom fiert the Welt. The Rebbe fiert the Welt were his words.
Als nicht ohne Idee hat man, wir wissen nicht, dem Ewigsten ist Droche mit den Teilen, muss ich ihn wundern nicht. Verstehen, dem Sechel von dem Ewigsten, sind ganz einander Sachen. Im ganzen Leben behören, bis am Mann mit Bermuna Pschuta, das ist also. Aber er beschaß es da in Joni, was versteht nicht, in der Amerikan Perlen. Ist aber sicher, Teva, Weihe wie Joshua. Sicher, der Ewigste tut, als Idos.
All believers in God believe also in the survival of the soul. When the physical body ceases to function, the soul continues its existence, not only as before, but even on a higher level. And here the Rebbe actually explained to me, and I thought it was beautiful. He knew that I had studied science in school because we had discussed that before. He said if you take a paper and you light a match to the paper is going to change form and shape. It won't be a paper anymore. It will be just ashes. So in that way we can understand that anything that has ever been created or existed will always remain.
Die Neshama in ihm meine du Matzav darf umkommen zu dem Ezer, zu der Evrim Gashmim, von Aiden, was gefühlt sich in Elam Gashmim. Als die Evrim Gashmim sollen tun, die Dvorim Tevim oder lernen Teile wie Kayetze Bazer, Bishlichuso, waren bei ihr allein dort zugenommen, hatte die Möglichkeit, Mese Tam Shehiyeh, hat aber gelassen die Möglichkeit für jeder Jeden und alle Jeden, Allahs kamen, Akrevim, Vashayochim, als sie sollen sein, die Schluchim, und sie sollen das durchführen, les Chus wie über eine Schom.
I remember this is a very profound insight of the Rebbe's, that the kavod hames is not always what we do about the mess, but we do bechroid the mess in the sense that we take the person we lost and we memorialize them.
Davon wird echt verstandig, der Gedel Hachrayus zusammen mit dem Gedel Haschus von jedem, was konton als ein Schlier von der Neshama.
Mother wrote a letter to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe answered her that the way to conquer her pain is al yedei lahamtik chayei ha'alman v'chayei ha'yisim, through working in trying to do your best in comforting the alman, meaning her husband and the children, and her eniklach. That'll be a channel for her to, be able to comfort herself in some manner.
Bishas a Mensch steht in a Maimed Masse von Masse Bruch, Teim und Nachsruh. Konner demol tufta, Nere, wie steht in a Maimed Masse von Berirus. Allahus kame, wie steht in a Maimed Masse von Asrus. Allahus kame, an Schome, was gefindt sich in Leila Moemes. Wo der Pare bepashtus nur, a jeder nachas ruach, da han Schome. In der Seche Tayilu, da han Schome.
May God grant that you will carry on the conduct of your home with joy and gladness of heart. And if you fulfill your responsibilities with joy, as your parents would want you to do, this is the greatest joy that you can bring to their souls. And this will also bring you and your additional blessings, both physically and spiritually, with blessings and then the Rebbe's signature.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Henny, everything that was said in there, that's you. You're just the most amazing person, and Hashem should continue to bless you with everything. I also would like to give a little Akar Sataiv to Shandy Jacobson and Joelle and Esty for helping behind the scenes with the class. Thank you so much. We couldn't have done this without you. And I would also like to thank all the ambassadors on this class. You all know who you are. We share this class weekly. And please, if you'd like to become an ambassador, please reach out. We do this class weekly. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we can't wait to see you again next week, hopefully with Mashiach here in person. So thank you again, everyone, for sharing. And we will conclude with that tonight. This month is the month of Iyar, the month of healing. And everyone watching this should have their own healing in their own personal lives, whatever that is. We are all in this together. When one suffers, we all suffer. When one hurts, we all hurt. That is the beauty of a Jewish nation. We care about each other so deeply, even for strangers. But most of all, Hashem should heal us. God, a doctor for us is someone who is a chariot of God, and through God, he heals. So everyone that is waiting for their healing, it should come immediately. And Hashem should just bless you all with everything. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Henny, for being vulnerable and sharing. You're going to help many, many people. I know it.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Chaya.
And can't wait to see all the amazing future things you're going to continue doing in your life. And Mashiach should come immediately, so there's full healing. Good night, everyone.